Hello and a very warm welcome to ET Studios, coming to you from ET BFSI CXO Conclave. I'm your host Divina Lasson, and today we're going to deep dive into the fascinating topic of innovating a seamless experience for BFSI consumers in the age of generative AI. Now, digital is not just a word but a whole ecosystem today. Leading banks are spending more than 10% of their operating costs on IT infrastructure and seek to strengthen it further. But is it enough? And what do banks and the entire BFSI sector need to achieve through digital transformation? Well, to help us understand how to deliver the most optimum customer experiences by harnessing technology and much more, we have joining us today Hitesh Veera, CEO, Kotak Life Insurance. Welcome, Hitesh.
Hi, hello.
And Angira Agrawal, India and SARC Head, Exotel. Welcome.
Hi, Devina. Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for being here on ET Studios. It's such a pleasure to have you. And we're really going to deep dive into what it takes in the BFSI sector to understand customers best, to really cater to their expectations and deliver personalized experiences. So, Hitesh, to start with you, what would you say is some of the key steps that BFSI companies can take in best understanding the customer, understanding their preferences, and how to customize experiences for them?
I think it is important to really build a customer persona. And today it is quite possible, with the advent of technology, particularly in the field of analytics and AI, of course, coming in and machine learning, actually. So, what we've seen is that if you're really able to build a good customer persona, you're able to offer products which are a little more customized, personalized. Customers are also very happy. In addition to that, I think when it comes to servicing, customers do expect a very quick and an
Yes.
easy way to kind of get themselves service. So I think if you really are able to build a customer persona, which I'm sure is quite possible now with the kind of technology that we see
Absolutely.
around,
Absolutely.
you will be able to offer better products and you will be able to service customers better.
Yeah, wonderful. So, Angira, in your experience working with an array of industries, an array of companies, what does it take really to create, as Hitesh has said, this persona, to use Gen AI and so on to really create that personalized experience?
So, one of the things in our experience we've realized working across industries, and some things fundamentally remain the same, is that customers want to be serviced the way they prefer,
Yes.
right? And in their interactions with any organization, be it a bank, be it an insurance provider, they have given enough opportunity for the provider to understand them well enough, right? And we have seen that happen across
Sure.
with unfortunately product differentiation going down and down. The customer experience part becomes very critical. How well does the organization understand my needs becomes extremely important to the
Yes.
consumer. And what we have noticed all of these organizations trying to now do is to understand the customer from the first point of time they start engaging with the brand, and then ensure that they start gathering that information, understand how would the customer prefer to be engaged with, how would they prefer to be interacted with, and do it at a level which is way beyond what it used to be earlier.
Sure.
With Gen AI, we have seen that change dramatically, right? So it could be that I have had 20 interactions with a banking organization or a BFSI organization, and during those interactions, there's a plethora of data that exists.
Absolutely.
Gen AI can actually help crunch it. So when the next 21st interaction is happening, it's very easy for the entity, the agent, either a human or a digital entity, to be able to engage with me using all the information that I've had, but also crunch it and make it more tuned to what actually would resonate based
Sure.
on maybe the persona that Hitesh was
Sure.
talking about.
Sure. Could you perhaps share some examples or case studies on how this has panned out?
Sure. So, as an example, we've noticed this that one of the goals that any organization has is either to upsell or cross sell, is in terms of how do we get out more services, how do we strengthen the relationship levels that exist, right? If an agent is talking to a customer on the phone and he or she, as part of closing the interaction, starts upselling a product, would
Yeah.
you, by the way, be interested in XYZ?
Sure.
But the agent hasn't registered that the last time this happened, the customer reacted extremely negatively.
Sure. Yes.
So
Okay.
they know, hey, this is not the time to do it, even if the customer is positive. And that's something that we've built. So that insight to the agent,
Wonderful.
the prompt to the agent saying, do not recommend an additional product, is something we've seen happening across some of the organizations that actually do multiple products.
Okay, great, wonderful. So, Hitesh, coming back to you, can you tell us about some of the strategies that BFSI companies can adopt to really ensure that the messaging across touchpoints, because of course we're looking at a very omni-channel world we're living in now. So, how can the messaging be uniform across all touchpoints?
Yeah, so you must have really a communication strategy in place. Gone are the days when we just had one or two modes of communication. Today, you have multiple, channels of
Absolutely, sure.
communication. One challenge, obviously, as you rightly said, is to maintain consistency across
Yes.
all the channels. And for that, it is important to have a very sound communication strategy. What we've also seen, from the feedback that we've got from customers, that customers don't like excessive communication. In fact,
Sure,
when
okay.
we began our journey, we realized that we were communicating possibly a little more excessively, and the feedback that we got from customers is that you're intruding into my
Sure,
space actually.
yeah.
So if you really want to have a good engagement, you must have really a sound kind of a communication strategy across all channels, right? And also making sure that you really strike a very good balance
Yes.
between the kind of communication that you do and the quantum of communication that you do with
Yes,
customers.
absolutely. So, how do you ensure that that messaging is kind of homogenous across the board, across your touch points?
So as I said, the communication strategy is owned by a single person, irrespective of the channels, right? So if you have one person really, then the messaging is very, very
Yes,
uniform. So
yes.
that is what essentially we do. Of course, you have also a strong mechanism of taking feedback from customers, and especially if your mechanism is good enough, then if there's any kind of inconsistency, that will kind of
Sure,
show up, and you can immediately then intervene and take corrective steps. But yes, it has to be well thought through and has to be owned by a single person to make sure that it is uniform
Yes,
across
yes,
all the channels.
Yes. Okay, great. And no conversation on CX can be had without talking about the role of data, right?
Absolutely.
So, can you tell us a little bit about how you've seen the BFSI sector really harnessing the data coming in to provide not only a good customer experience, but those hyper personalized experiences as well?
Yeah. So, you have a lot of data coming, as you said. So really, one has to analyze the data very, very
Yes,
carefully. Correct.
absolutely.
You need a strong analytics team. So earlier we've seen organizations like, and particularly, the organization that I work for, we never had a specialized team earlier, and we realized that that is something that is absolutely imperative in today's times. So now we have a full-fledged data team with a lot of data scientists in it,
Okay,
who give us a lot of data, and the kind of insights that we've got after we've formed this data analytics team is just amazing. So with the data that we've got, you need to back it up with enough investments in your technology and your processes,
Yes, sure.
so that
Yes.
to make sure that all this data intelligence that you have, it eventually translates into a better customer and a product offering and better servicing. And I
Absolutely.
think when you have a servicing which is backed extensively by data, you find that it is also personalized. Yes, to what extent do you personalize is it is directly proportional to the kind of investments that you want to kind
Yes,
of commit.
that's true.
But yes, as long as you are able to offer something which the customers feel it's
Sure.
customized for them, I think you generally will have a very good feedback from customers.
Absolutely. And we're going to come back to you on this point of investments. But before that, Angira, love to
Sure.
bring you in on this point. How have you seen the BFSI sector harnessing the best of data strategy, be it from analytics to application, ultimately to approach the customers in the best and most personalized manner possible?
Sure. So, one of the things that we have seen very actively is increasingly BFSI organizations looking at, like Hitesh mentioned, the communication coming into the channels, various channels of engagement with the customers becoming an important piece.
Sure.
While there's a lot of data that sits in the system, there's a lot of analytics that comes into how is the customer engaging across various properties, whether it's a website, whether it's an app, whether it's in a branch as needed. The actual interaction between the agent who's providing the service versus the customer is actually very rich. It captures an element that is very difficult to replace, which is the empathy element.
Yes, yes. Sure.
And a person could be very sarcastic and say, "You've done a great job," or I could say, "You've done a great job," and it could be very different. How does that get picked up? So we are able to also, through the communication channels that we provide, bring that into the organization, and then organizations process it further. And there's something we've seen across. And using that information, it actually becomes very, very easy for the brand. Like Hitesh mentioned, customers don't want too much communication.
Sure. Yes.
So how do you reduce that? How do you make it more effective and precise Everyone's running short on time. So that's something, because Exotel provides multiple technologies, multiple levels of communication, it's very easy for us to bring that all together and maybe even suggest saying, hey, don't send a message right now.
Yeah.
Make a phone call.
Yeah.
And depending on the use case, it could be, hey, don't make a phone call right now, send a message. So we also have that intelligence in terms of what is possibly the pickup that would happen to either a message, an email, or even a phone call.
Sure.
And that intelligence we also bring in
Yes.
to ensure that the communication is effective, limited, and the point about investment that Hitesh touched upon is effective.
Absolutely. So, well, I mean, to dwell a little deeper into this point on investment, I'll ask both of you this question. But Angira, so how do you really help organizations to measure their ROI? Because, of course, this is one of the prime factors when it comes to adopting any new technology, any new innovation. So, what are some of the metrics and tools that are possible for measuring the return on investment?
Sure. So, a couple of things that we do. We actually keep on asking this question at least 3 to 4 times as to what's the business goal that you want to achieve. Now, it could be cost reduction,
Sure.
which means better efficiencies. It could be revenue increase, or it could even be reducing risks, for example. So once that goal is clear, then the metrics in terms of, if you're trying to reduce costs, for example, is it efficiency, is it CSAT, is it NPS,
Yes.
which are also, by the way, linked to revenue generation, comes into play. And then again, if it's risk reduction, what are the elements you need to pick up? So when they come into play, it's very easy for us then to say, okay, these are the experiences we had. We work with about 6,000 odd customers globally. It's very easy for us to bring that information in based on our knowledge of across customers, the business appetite, to say, hey, in our recommendation, this would make sense.
Yes.
Again, there are various technologies that would come into play. When I say tech, I mean from a communication viewpoint. We would say it doesn't make sense for you to make a phone call at this time. Or even if it needs to be a voice conversation, can it move from being the traditional PSTN voice to digital voice, which can actually bring down costs significantly? And again, we try to work with the organizations to link it to their expected business outcomes and the ROI that they expect.
Yeah.
Similarly, it could move to completely different, right? So we do talk about having digital voice or digital means of engagement being cheaper than human means of engagement. So we look at a balance that would help the organization achieve their goals.
All right, wonderful. Yeah, Hitesh, your perspective on this, because of course, from an organization standpoint, measuring your ROI and being very clear, actually, what is the ROI is of prime importance. So how do you approach that?
So I think Angira has already answered that question quite extensively. But in addition to what he just mentioned, there are two metrics that we also use, to make sure that the ROI, or how do you really measure the ROI, when you are making an investment. So one is obviously what percentage of your business is repeat business, and we find that especially when you are targeting to a specifically customer audience based on the customer persona backed by data and processes, the repeat business increases. So what percentage of your customers have given you repeat business? NPS, of course, is there, when you're using it for servicing. In insurance parlance, I come from the life insurance industry. For us, persistency, which particularly the 13-month persistency, which means the premium that he pays after 1 year and with 1 month grace.
Yeah.
That is a very, very effective measure for us to see that whether the product was rightly sold and whether it was the right product that was sold to the customer. So these are some of the metrics that we use to measure our ROI.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing those insights very candidly, actually. Gentlemen, both of you, before we wrap up, let's leave our audience today with one key takeaway on what it really means for innovating a seamless customer experience in the BFSI sector. After we've discussed various points, let's bring it all together with one takeaway. Hitesh?
One takeaway that I could possibly say today is that what we are finding now is particularly Gen Z now slowly getting into our books, right?
Absolutely.
We find that speed and ease particularly is taking precedence over brand loyalty. So gone are the days where people would kind of ignore if there are some kind of mishaps here and there.
Yes.
They will stick to the brand. But Gen Z, they want speed, they want ease. Whoever gives it, they don't really worry about brand loyalty.
True. Yeah. It's a bit of a risk factor. Angira?
So a couple of weeks back, we were here at GFF and we ran a survey with some of the participants we had. And one of the things that emerged was 60% still believe that Gen AI will only partially support or replace humans.
Okay.
So the key takeaway is that while yes, in a lot of cases, tech makes sense, and please do adopt it wholeheartedly.
Yes.
Otherwise, there were dinosaurs at one time; they're extinct.
Yes.
So it needs to be adopted. However, please also keep the human angle in mind.
Absolutely.
So for the next foreseeable future, it's going to be more about augmenting humans, the humans who interact with customers and deliver a customer experience, rather than actually replacing them.
Replacing.
I think that will work a lot better, at least for the next few years. for
Yes.
sure.
All right. Wonderful. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you for being
pleasure.
on ET Studios and sharing all your
Yeah,
insights.
pleasure.
Thank you
being-
so much.
Thank you. All right, with great learnings from industry leaders on innovating a seamless experience for BFSI consumers in the age of Gen AI, that's all we have for you on this episode. But do stay tuned to ET Studios for many more in depth conversations. Until next time, many thanks for watching.